So if you want to get better at anything, you have to do it more. And that includes jumping. And one of the most effective things you can do is to jump every single day to jump higher. The best jumpers in the world, well, specifically the best pro dunkers in the world, did that, including myself, and got to a pretty decent level. But when you sign up for THP, it doesn't have dunk sessions every day. Why not? Today we're going to go over that and more. We're going to cover our personal experiences with jumping every day or lack thereof, downsides, upsides, should you do it? And should be pretty interesting podcast. Having said all that, if you want to get coached by both me and John Evans over here, you can go to THPstrength.com. Right now, we have a 50% off your first month sale going on until Cyber Monday, which is December 1st or 2nd.
So if you're dragging your feet and you missed the first sale,
now's your chance.
Yeah, don't miss this one. So yeah, talking about this topic, it kind of is reminiscent of the plyometric versus jump often, jump every day kind of conversation, right? Like,
yeah,
I would say out of the pro dunkers that I know personally or have met, many of them have had a period of time where they went through the onslaught of jumping every day, specifically 2-footers. You don't see too many 1-footers unless they're like really outliers. I personally did jump every day, but it was not dunking. I was high jumping every day for a period of time. Specifically when I was in 7th, 8th, maybe a little bit in 9th grade, I was jumping almost every single day. I improved a lot initially, like 7th grade, and then even some of partially like that summer in 8th grade, but then really started to slow down. Ran into a lot of back pain, a lot of back injuries. Again, I wasn't dunking. I was doing this for high jump. I did a decent amount of plyos at the time as well. The jump volumes were pretty outrageous. I got a lot faster as well. But in general, I was hurt a lot, like a lot. I herniated 2 discs when I was 14 because of trying to jump every day and high jump every day. Now, high jump, you do have the flexing of the back, like extension to flexion, and I didn't have a lot of somersaults, so I was doing a lot of compensatory actions to compensate for that. So maybe if I was dunking, it would have been different, but I even remember just having a bunch of back spasms. Like I remember dunking actually, and my back just like lighting up like a back spasm. I could barely walk. My uncle was a PT, so I showed him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, your back is just like spasming like crazy," and it hurts so bad. Haven't had that happen since, but yeah, I've was very achy, very sore, very stiff, very often, and I started getting knee pain. So that's my experience with jumping every day. Long term, it just was like, can you hear me by the way when this is on over here? It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it here. So long term, it wasn't really a good solution. Oh, also one thing I want to say, guys, to all of you listening, Thanksgiving's coming up. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna get my Shure mic so that Isaiah and I can sound as crisp as possible. And I'm really excited because it's been there. It's been at home. I haven't been home for like a year and a half, so that's why I don't have it, but I will soon. Anyways, what is your experience, Isaiah, with jumping every day?
Yeah. I did it without meaning to from playing basketball, and just sports in general. Like I was always doing some kind of athletic movement every single day. The first time I started doing it on purpose was when I was 16, around there. That's when I actually started having focused dunk sessions every single day, and I improved a lot. I improved very quickly, and I did get knee pain very early on. So I started doing it whilst having knee pain. And I would say I didn't only jump though. I was also weight training in conjunction. It was inconsistent and there wasn't any kind of rhyme or reason to it. I would do 3 sets of 5 every single time I would go to the gym of squatting, power clean, or deadlifts. And yeah, improved very quickly. That's how I basically got my vertical from, mind you, I was also hitting puberty at the same time. So it was kind of like a perfect storm.
That's also when I was jumping every day during puberty.
Yeah. Which I think helped a lot. Helped my mechanics a lot. It helped my.
Did you know there's research about that specifically? Like when men jump a lot during puberty or like early stage of puberty, they typically get knee pain as a result, and people who wait later on typically don't or have less of a chance to develop knee pain. Did you know that?
I think I have seen that. I have seen that actually.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. But go ahead.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, it got my dunk technique very, very good. My jump technique very, very good. My vertical got up to, I want to say 40, 42 by doing that. And once I got to that point, I started focusing a lot more on the weight training aspect of it. And that's when I got my vertical probably to like 44. And then this is very interesting. Took weights completely out and only jumped probably an average of 3 to 5 times a week for an entire year. My vertical dropped from doing that. So I've improved from from jumping every day, and I've also gotten worse and got horrible knee pain from jumping every single day.
It's kind of funny too. Like now, I would say I benefit from jumping less off one foot for sure.
Yeah,
And I've heard that before. Like some guys will say, like, "Oh, you just need more plyos and jumping less, and you'll respond better." You know what I mean? And then, but when I first started dunking, that was not the case. Like when
yeah,
I started dedicating more effort to sessions, I would say it was like really sporadic when I would jump high if I jumped infrequently. But now that I have the technique down, it's like I don't need to practice it anymore. You know what I mean? Like jumping less and staying fresh and healthy and then going into a session, warming up and just like flying and knowing I'm fit, I'm gonna jump better than if I try to jump more frequently, jump throughout the month and or whatever, right? Like it just doesn't end up being beneficial for me. It
yeah,
just ends up pissing my knees off, pissing my hamstring off. My dunk technique gets a little bit better maybe, but even now I kind of have the dunks that I have in my pack in my bag. I don't really need to practice all that much. Like a cuff windmill doesn't really matter. 180 windmill, cuff windmill, I don't really need to like rep that out. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of am I jumping high enough on the day?
yeah.
And is my timing like appropriate? When I was early on, I would say 2017 to 2000 and I was probably like 2017. The year I partially tore my patella, I was dunking 2 3 days a week. I was dunking as much as I could. And before that, when I did it off 2 foot in 2015, it destroyed me. Like absolutely destroyed my knees to like irreparable damage.
The
And
thing the
yeah,
thing
it
a
was really
yeah.
bad.
The thing about, like, jumping frequently is the guys that see success from it aren't usually doing it as, like, they don't see it as, "Oh, this is like a training stimulus and I need to do this every day." Like, it's usually just because they like it. Like, they're doing it because they
Like
love
trick shots.
jumping. They're usually healthy enough to be doing it, and it's more of an extension of, like, being passionate about jumping and dunking and stuff like that. Um, I don't think I've ever seen it work for somebody that, like, late. Like, they're trained and then they go out and try to and are
Like
very.
play catch up with it.
Yeah, exactly,
Like
exactly.
I really agree with that. It's a product of I'm a 13-year-old kid and I just want to have fun. You know, a hoop and
Yeah.
Nate example, or Dom, or you, or um, he who shall not be named, Voldemort. Those individuals, they've benefited. Donovan's another one too. Like Donovan was like that as well. He just wanted to go out and low rim,
And we
and
don't tell
typically
guys.
catch up low rim. Like they have
Yeah.
great technique as well. So
The other thing, we don't stop guys from jumping every day. Like, when a athlete is on THP, like, and they ask, we tell them you can, it's just risky.
yeah,
And
they're playing with fire.
and
How
and I
how
feel
long are
like
you gonna hold the hot potato in your hand before you get burnt?
it's like the other day when you told me, like, I was just like, how do you teach someone, we were talking about my muscle pull, and then I brought up the question, like, it's like your mind, like, how do you teach someone to be disciplined? And then you basically said you don't. Like, you have to mess up, essentially. You have to make mistakes. And I kinda see that as, like, the jumping every day thing. I think it's, if you like jumping and dunking, like, there is no stopping that that guy from doing it, and it's kinda just like, just let him do it till they
Let
get
him make
hurt.
his mistakes, right?
Yeah,
Like there's a I don't know what it is. It's like up till 13, you can listen to your parents, and then like from 13 to 18, you're gonna learn from experience. And, like you're not
yeah,
gonna take anyone's word for it, and then eventually you get to a point where you realize like you should listen to other people.
yeah,
I think it's something like that. I don't know the exact wording of it, but it's true. Like, you wouldn't know that it's too much volume until you have that experience that you had the other day. Like, you've never pulled your quad from jumping enough times where fatigue was the driving factor. And we talked to Ben
Yeah.
about it, and tendons can fatigue. So it's possible that his jumps became more muscular and less elastic, less tendon reliant. And then it was enough to fatigue the muscle, and then cross bridging can't happen correctly or fast enough. And you end up pulling your muscle. And you wouldn't know that that was too much until you've already made that mistake. If
Yeah.
we had cut the session an hour in as opposed to 2.5 hours in or whatever it was, that never happens, obviously.
Yeah.
It's good that it was only a small strain, but moving forward, you have to know that you can't continue to make that mistake over and over and over again. I mean, I would hope, I don't know.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed you don't keep making
Well,
that
that's
mistake.
the thing is the guys that are jumping every day usually don't have the outputs that like
Oh,
the
that's
outputs aren't
yeah,
high enough to get hurt.
and they're light.
Yeah.
Like, the 1 foot guys that do it, Austin Eli weighed 120 pounds and was jumping every day
Mhm.
off 1 foot. Yeah, you can get away with that. It's like throwing a baseball versus trying to overhand throw a shot put. It's
Yeah.
not the same. Throwing a dart, yeah, I could throw darts all day, but as soon as you start throwing a baseball, you're gonna the pitch count exists for a reason, right?
Mhm.
And I think that mass plays a really big role in that. That's well documented in research too, to my knowledge. If you have more mass, you're even if you're fatter, then you're going to be in a higher risk. You're going to be in a higher risk category of forming tendon issues
Yeah.
or back pain or everything else. The forces are just higher. So materials have a limit. They have a threshold for what their capacity is, and when you exceed that threshold, whether it's through repeat jumps or it's through lifting or whatever else, you're going to exceed that. Or driving, or we love cars, so we use your car analogies. You're
Yeah.
going to exceed that material's ability to handle or tolerate load, and it's going to, I don't want to say be destroyed. It's going to damage. You're going to see damage, right? You're going to see
Mhm.
destruction and damage as a result of it. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my lens. But let's talk about kind of how we would integrate it, or what do you think the best practice is? And I know we've talked about this a couple different times, and I have some thoughts on it too. But
Uh, I think you should build up to it for one. So don't do a rapid increase in volume. Uh,
don't YOLO it. Just
yeah,
like,
like if you're jumping one time a week, don't go to 7 days a week all of a sudden. Um,
what do you
that's
think is an
honestly one of
appropriate
the
ramp
big.
up?
You said what?
What do you think is like an appropriate example of a ramp up for it?
Uh, Start at one session a week, 30 minutes. I would probably go till you can dunk for like an hour. Then when I would add a second session at 20 minutes, increase the length of that one. Then so on and so forth till
And
you're
how
at
do I
a
know? How do I know if I've done it right or wrong?
is your body has something hurting.
Like
If
during,
if
after,
your
next day?
tendon well, when you jump, you shouldn't be feeling pain. Uh, that's already a sign right there that you're probably overdoing it, a little bit if you're feeling pain while jumping. Uh, During warm-ups, that's fine. First off, if you're feeling any pain at all, you probably aren't the type of person that should jump every single day. Like, I would probably be integrating weight room sessions and twice a week max if that's you. But if you're completely healthy, like you don't have a history of tendon pain or anything like that, do that ramp up that I
But
just said.
earlier you said that you've never seen someone play catch up in this work. So is this in a catch up example or like early on in your career?
This is early on. Like this is like you're healthy
Yeah.
young athlete.
I'm
You're
playing devil's advocate here and pretending
yeah
like I'm an idiot who knows nothing. So this is, but I am also curious at the same time.
yeah.
So this is like what age? Like what do you think? Like 10 to 15 to 16 or something?
No limit on the lower end, and then the higher end would probably be like you're completely done with puberty. Like that's probably what I consider the upper threshold of it.
You've never done jump training before.
What do you mean? Like, are you
Like
saying like
like
an old athlete that's never
Yeah,
done jump
I'm
training?
saying, like, if I'm the upper end, like, I'm 17 and I've never done jump training before, is this like, I've done jump training before, I'm considering trying this,
You could probably do it. I think you
like,
could.
try it, like, experiment with it?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
What if I'm 18 in college? Should I do it?
I'm trying to think if I've even seen examples of that.
Kyle Crowley tried it.
and he died.
You know what happened to him? R.I.P. Kyle. I love you, Kyle. I miss you so much. We need to hang out soon. But I know you don't listen to this, Kyle. If you guys don't know who Kyle Crowley is, he's one of the first athletes I ever coached after Austin. He might have been the second. Kyle in college idolized Jacob Tucker and Rucker Nice. And he decided that he was going to go ahead and jump every day and lift almost 2 to 3 days a week. It's super strong. I saw him like take 150-pound dumbbells and just like do walking lunges with them. Like he was a freaking beast, so strong. And he had these squeaky, crackly knees. It sounded like plastic rubbing together. And he could not, for the life of him, have pain-free anything at any time. And it gave him a lot of anxiety to the point where he tried everything. I'm talking everything. He tried isos. He tried PFP loading. He tried strengthening his glute med, everything. And his hyaline cartilage was so far degenerated and his chondromalacia was so far advanced that there was no coming back from it. It was just going to be managing symptoms if he wanted to do that. And it was a decision of, do I manage symptoms and continue to train and try to do this a little bit, or do I just try to have a good quality of life? That's how far advanced the damage to his knees were. So this is a lesson in listening to your body and not allowing it to get to that point. Because if you allow it to get to that point, there's no going back. You can't undo the damage to cartilage.
I
Kyle's
also I want to put out a
Or you
warning.
can't undo irreparable damage. That's what I would say.
I want us to put out a warning too. Don't compare yourself to athletes that are genetically more injury resilient than you. Like I used to like there's guys that are built different in terms of injuries
Like Voldemort?
like Voldemort, T Flying High. T Flying High was like that. Donovan is like that.
Donovan is like that.
Younger Jordan Sutherland. I mean, basically Jordan Sutherland always, except this last year. This last year he tore his Achilles.
He was like that for a while too.
A lot of the pro dunkers, a lot of like the elite pro dunkers are like that, where it's superhuman. Like they can literally go out every day and no warm up, just go dunk. And I used to
weird to
compare,
me because you were so much more injury prone than all of those guys that you just listed. Yet you are now the healthiest technically. Isn't that weird?
That's the thing. I think I made a short form
The
video
gift of
about this.
injury.
No, I made a short form video about this the other day. No, it was during my voiceover. I was talking about it, and I remember being 14, 15, and I would hear guys being like, even I heard this basically every single year, but it was just like, yeah, I remember when I wish I was 16 again, or I was 17 again, where I was feeling nothing, and then I was like, I'm feeling everything, like everything hurts. What's gonna happen when I'm 25, when I'm 30?
Me
Like
too.
everything's hurting right now.
I was like, oh, I'm 14 and you told me my spine looks like that of a 65-year-old. I'm screwed, brother.
Yeah. And I remember being in dunk contests at like 18, and it was guys like Guy. Like Guy was another one, by the way. And I would hear guys like Guy be like, "Oh yeah, you're 18, you're good, man. Like you can just go out and just jump every day and blah blah blah." And I was
You're
like,
never gonna have issues. Don't you worry.
I definitely cannot do that. And it's crazy because I ended up jumping higher than every single one of those people.
In the nicest way possible.
Yeah.
No disrespect.
And so
If you measured your vertical, all of you, no disrespect, I promise you.
Hey, we can look, if anybody takes offense, let's go out and test.
Or we'll just look at flight times.
Yeah. But no, like in all seriousness, coming from someone, I used to have a lot of, I don't even know if depression is the right word. I used to get
anxiety.
Not even anxiety, but I would just get down in the dumps because I would compare myself to people like that, and I'd be like, damn, like, is this actually for me? Like, am I ever gonna reach my genetic limit? Or not genetic, like, am I ever gonna reach elite levels of jumping? Is pro dunking cut out for, like, am I cut out for it? Because these guys were way more resilient than me. Way more resilient than me. And just don't do that. Don't compare yourself to the freaks,
Comparison is the thief of joy. Isaiah
Yeah.
always used to say this, and it's very true.
And
One,
all gods must fall.
yeah.
I used to look at
Is that
Austin.
a God of War reference?
No, that's just I don't know where I've heard that. It just came out of my subconscious.
The
But,
dome.
bro, I used to look at Austin. The first time I ever met Austin, it was in New York. We were having like this group dunk session on an outdoor park, and then he pulls up in a car with I think it was like Lewis or something. He pulls up, gets out of the car, max effort attempt, like 1 foot, like off one, freaking tries to dunk. Like he's out of the car and he's trying to dunk. And I remember just being like, "What the hell?"
I vividly remember you telling this story and saying something along the lines of like, "This kid is an idiot."
Yeah. No, that's what I thought. That was my first thought was he is retarded. Yeah. He ended up getting knee pain.
He
I
sure
now
did.
arguably have healthier knees than him.
Yeah. Austin
Resilient knees.
texted today and he was like, "We know you listen to these, Austin." And he was like, "I hated when I was in it, but listening to you two talk is like so much fun. And I enjoy listening to them every day." So he's gonna hear that and be like, "I'm just catching strays." Someone in the comments was like, literally hearing John explain or Isaiah explain what happened and how he pulled his quad sounds like two kids telling their parents what happened, and then the one just throws the other friend, like the other son or brother, under the bus, and he just
Yeah.
gets eviscerated and ran over. So Austin catching strays. But to your point, I do agree. I think don't compare yourself, stay in your lane, try to view it as you versus you. There was something I saw actually the other day on YouTube was explaining, it was kind of, I don't remember exactly what the context was. It was Peak, is that the name? Range, is that the name of the book by Epstein? Something Epstein, David Epstein.
I'm not sure.
Range, I think
I'm
it's the
not
name of the book. Anyways, he was explaining how child prodigies, they learn one task really well, right? Like kids when they go to play piano and their parents make them play Bach or whatever, I don't know,
Yeah.
and they do it like a million times and they're really talented when they're 6, or child prodigy basketball players or football players. And he was basically explaining that my dog keeps kicking my camera. And he was explaining that these kids never end up manifesting to the developmental level that we expect as people, because our development as humans is not linear, and that oftentimes, Bailey, shut up. And that oftentimes our development is this nonlinear, multifactorial, multimodal, very general to specific development, and that people who have a slower development actually end up hitting a higher peak than people who peak earlier in life. The book might have been called Peak. And he basically goes on to talk about how it's very important to have individuals who experience a lot of adversity and nonlinear experiences, because our development is nonlinear, meaning there's these chaotic experiences and there are these controlled experiences. And the more chaotic the experiences and the less linear or almost like predictable it is, the better the development is. And it's the same thing in motor learning that I use with you guys, where if I want you to learn how to sprint effectively, I give you a different context that's more difficult. Or I give you, if I want you to learn how to do a dunk better out of a hat, I have you do it randomly instead of repeating the same one over and over and over again, because your retention is going to be better and your true learning is going to be better if you're exposed to all these different stimuli randomly almost, right? That's what we see in research. And he goes on to basically explain that your long-term development is better when you face these different adversities and basically learn how to cope with them or manage them appropriately over time. And that these really early successes, in a sense, limit your ceiling as a human being. And it's kind of does a
No,
good job of
that is a
articulating what you just said.
that is the perfect description for what happened with me and injuries, because injuries are inevitable. Like no matter how freaky you are, injury resilient you are as a dunker, eventually something is gonna pop up, whether that's an overuse injury or a freak accident or something like that. And usually when
So to
that's
all
what
you
stops,
Poliquin zealots,
and that's usually what stops progress, because those guys usually don't know how to rehab the injury and come back, or maybe the only training they know is dunking and playing basketball every day. So as soon as you can't handle that, your vertical starts doing this. But for me, it's like I had knee pain at 15. I had to learn how to train around it and still get better despite that. I got back pain when I was 19. I learned how to manage that and train around that, right? Muscle pull. That I was 20, 21. I knew how to still train and around that. PFP. Man, it got rid of that, and it was like really shaky, and then it's like boom, lots of progress. Hit another speed bump, figure it out, boom, more progress. Uh, and it's probably gonna keep going. I don't know how, like, what my limit is as far as jumping higher, but if there's one thing I know how to do, is how to deal with adversity, whether that be injuries or people calling me out on online or
Oh, you never know what you're gonna get.
or
Also, the book is
freaking
called Range.
family drama or whatever it is. Like, I've always dealt with that stuff.
I want to say this too. By the way, the book is David Epstein, Range: Why Generalists Succeed in a World Filled with Specialists. That I think that's what it is. I didn't. That was off the top of my dome when I looked it up.
I
So
might
you
check
guys should
that.
definitely check that out if you're interested in the topic. But this is multi not multilinear. That's not the word. It crosses different areas of life. This is true of dunking and long term development and as an athlete, but it's also true in business. It's also true in relationships. It's also true in all the things Isaiah just used. I want to reiterate that because it's like understanding how to handle that chaos and manage it over time makes you a grittier, more well-balanced individual. And this is why like Bo Jackson is one of the greatest athletes ever. Why? Because he did every single sport. Same thing like you were a multi-sport athlete growing up. You went outside
Mhm.
and you did all these different things and then it specialized to this one thing. That's generally what we see with anyone who's, wildly talented at any one thing, right? Like it's kind of interesting when you look at quantitatively assessed sports like sprinting or distance running and stuff like that, right? Because it's so physiologically determined. But when you look at dunking, it's kind of interesting because there is a component of how your hands are, right? Like, can you like touch on the ball? Like, it's not just
Yeah.
jump height or something else, right? It's football is another good example. And I think when the more variable or complex the task at hand is, the more having a multilateral approach really benefits you long term.
I have I feel like I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but being able to hit a complex trick dunk that requires a lot of vertical is one of the best displays of overall athleticism. Like, if you think about what it requires, let's say a 360 kamikaze, right?
Oh,
Like like
that one's a good
every
one.
all the motor abilities that
Yeah.
requires in terms of hands, coordination, vertical height, flexibility, uh, you need like, you have to almost have a huge background in sports to be able to do that specific
Yeah. Because
dunk.
some people would be able a basketball player that's really talented, maybe he can jump really high, but if he doesn't have the coordination, he's not going to be able to do that. Or a baseball player, maybe he can do that action on a little Tykes hoop, but if he doesn't
Yeah,
have the power output, he's not going to be able to do it. Or a gymnast might have the mobility, but they don't have the power or the speed in you know the run up or the coordination to manage the ball.
yep,
Right? It's like you once you start to tease out these little elements of it, like kamikaze is a really good example because it requires insane mobility, it requires insane speed and strength because you have to be powerful, and power is those two variables. You got to be wildly coordinated, both with hand-eye coordination,
yeah,
proprioception, knowing where your body is in space. You have to have a lot of that to be able to do it.
mhm,
And then the timing of that also is going to play a role, like dropping the ball and spinning it between your legs and catching it with the same hand. That's
yeah,
incredibly different. That's why that dunk is one of my favorite. It's is because of the reasons you said. It
yeah,
doesn't like the speed aspect. You're not in the top tier of speed in any one regard, but it does require a reasonable amount of momentum, like in the run up
yeah,
and vertical velocity speed and hand
eh,
speed. There's like
eh,
limb speed and ball. The limb speed actually is crazy. Like you got to be
yeah,
fast.
like, with your like this
Yeah,
action right here,
exactly. Yep.
it's
But
crazy.
there's almost no endurance, though. I will say that outside of just trying it a million times and taking
Yeah.
6 steps.
It's crazy because, like, if you think about that dunk and it lasts whatever, a second, like, you're in the air for, zero point 0.9 seconds. The run up is like 2 or 3 seconds. but it's like a culmination of like
all of this
life.
elements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just
But
life is
that's exactly what I
and
put
then
on
if you
my
want to take it
Instagram
a
post
step,
the other day.
like, if you want to go even deeper with it, now think of the training that took to get there and to be able to handle the injuries and setbacks and stuff. And now you need not just like athletic training, it's like what allowed the mind to be trained to handle, like it goes really, really deep for that.
I think, but that's the thing. It's like when you're at the very tippy top of anything, truly anything, it is what you just explained. It's the culmination of all of those life experiences that led to that 3-second effort. It's Usain Bolt running a 9:58 is not him waking up one day and running a 9:58.
Yeah.
It's 100,000 fans in a coliseum every day training on a track with Glenn Mills on grass, on turf. It's him losing in the Olympics in 2008 or 2004 or whatever, like running the 400 and getting destroyed. It's the psychological aspects. There is the
Yeah.
genetics aspect, and doing it on that stage on that given day with those competitors, with the level of stress, with the prelims, like going out and everything being
That
perfect,
that
like
reminds me of
perfectly aligned.
like anytime I play a video game or like or out and we're like bowling or something. And every time I'm on like some kind of clutch situation, I do this joke and I'm like, everything in my life has led up to this
It's led
moment.
to this moment. You
Yeah, I
say
always
that
say
all
that,
the time.
but it's true. And I'll say it in the most, it doesn't even have to be a competitive thing. I could go eat like a bowl of cereal. It's like everything in my life has led up to this.
It's
But
true
it's
though.
true.
Yeah. This is the furthest point. This podcast,
Everything,
everything in my life, in
yeah,
my entire life has led up to this moment of
this
me
right
nailing this
here.
podcast, hitting it out of the park. There's like no
If this
pressure.
podcast flops, our life was for nothing.
Don't let this fail. This is probably a good place to close it
Yeah.
off. Thank you guys for watching if you made it this far. If you guys are interested in learning about jump training, you love jump training, you want to get better, you want to be a better athlete, go sign up. We love coaching you guys. We love making people better. I love taking little nerds and making them freak athletes. That is my favorite thing in the entire world. Like myself, that resonates with me personally. I
Like
like walking into
Verkhoshansky.
the gym. Exactly. I like
You're
walking
modern
into the
day
gym.
Verkhoshansky, man.
I truly I am. I've been writing about this man, and he resonates with me. Him, Charlie Francis, except I don't put drugs in my athletes, uh, which
Allegedly.
compliment allegedly, yeah, compliment
I got what is it called?
called out,
Yeah, I got called out.
accused.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
yep.
was best compliment. Best compliment we've ever
Dude,
had.
Donovan got accused the other day too. Like it honestly, I laugh about it. It's funny. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is great. Unless they're not telling me something, which we would be transparent with
Bro,
you
by
guys.
the
We have no
way,
shame.
seeing Donovan has completely changed my outlook on PEDs.
Wait, why?
Because when you think of pro sports,
Right.
everybody automatically is like steroids. Like it's rampant, right? Like in everything. Like you
Yeah.
mention a freaky NFL player, someone's gonna mention steroids. Mention anybody in track and field, someone's gonna mention they're on steroids. Like everybody just assumes that. And if there was somebody that I would have fucking assumed was on steroids, it would have been Donovan.
See, I wouldn't have. That's funny.
Because he's so freaky. He's freaking 200 plus pounds, 6'3, 48-inch vertical, like
6'4". That's not
massive, like upper body wise.
two.
But
He's 219 today. Let's
having,
not glaze this man anymore. Don't give
yeah,
him 225.
hey, take it from me, John. We lived with him for a little, or John lived with him for a little. This man's not on steroids. He's not injecting shit.
No, he's not. It's truly amazing.
And
He's just
it's changed my perspective on freak athletes because now I'm just like, they might just be freaky. Like there's freaky freaking specimens out there.
it's so hard to tell. Like that's the thing. Unless like you're looking for, and even then, dude, like what are you gonna
Yeah.
do? Go through their house? You're gonna get a search warrant, and it's just like I don't know. That's
Yeah.
why I think I like when people are transparent about it or they're on, whatever. I think Greg Doucette is actually really interesting because he calls it out like he sees it when he's like, yeah, this dude gained like 20 pounds of muscle and
Yeah.
whatever, like 2 weeks. I mean, I will say this: there are freak outliers out there. My friend Garrett Starkey, his dad is an Olympian. Like he's a true outlier of outliers of outliers. And people thought that Garrett's dad, because this was like the steroid era, that he was on steroids. But Garrett is not objectively. I'm telling you, he's not. He did gain 20 pounds of muscle in like, I don't know what it was. It was like two or three. It was like 3 months, and he gained 20 pounds of mass, and he's still like shredded, diced, and people would think that's not possible. How do you gain 20 pounds? It's like, dude, he is the best genetics objectively in the entire world. His
I
dad
don't
is
think
a
people
fucking Olympian.
realize how crazy genetics can get, like how
How
gifted people can
modified.
be.
Yeah, that's really what it is. I mean, I've always kind of saw it that way because, like, growing up, I saw these, freak of free track. It really kind of, high schoolers, these kids would come out and shit on everything I've ever developed, and not with the worst technique ever. And I'm like, well, genetics really play a role. Like, it's so prevalent in high jump. It's so
Yeah.
obvious at that point. And that's why I love training, because it's like, all right, can training outdo these guys? That's why it's better to say, like, you versus you. Don't compare yourself to other people. And don't get caught up in that trap like we were talking about earlier, because it's multilateral approaches and slower approaches will give you you're going to have a higher pinnacle.
Yep.
But all right, on that note, we'll see you guys tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed this. And sign up for THPstrength.com coaching. See you guys. Bye.